go. Here we go. Here we go. It's Saturday. It's bonus pod time here on Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. It's the Hot 10. You guys have seemed to enjoy this as a Saturday special, so why the hell not? Plus, we got kind of fun names on today's show as Kid Screams 8 seconds into the podcast. Delightful. I'm Dan Besbris. You can find me on Twitter at Dan Besbris, DanBesbris. Please like, rate, subscribe. For God's sake, subscribe if you haven't found us before. And feel free to hype stuff. I still don't really know what that means. This show is brought to you by FanDuel and the FanDuel Sportsbook, as well as the Believe network of podcasts. Let's talk about the 10 most added players here on Saturday across all fantasy leagues. They are in this exact order by volume. Number 1, Jose Alvarado. Number 2, Adem Bona. Number 3, Jay Huff. Number 4, Egor Demin. Number 5, Saddiq Bey. Number 6, Tre Jones. Number 7, Yves Missi. Number 8, AJ Green. Number 9, Julian Champagnie. And number 10, Ryan Nembhard. This is, in my opinion, the most fun list we've had in quite some time. A lot of these guys actually do, for the first time in a while, belong on rosters. Let's go through them one by one, and we'll tell you which ones do, don't, and why. Number 1 is Jose Alvarado. We can zoom in even more here for YouTubers because these pages I'm sharing are not all that large. Alvarado is going to be a no for me. And I know that means that I'm being a little bit picky because he's on a string of a couple of really nice ball games in a row. He played 32 minutes on Wednesday, 27 minutes on Friday. He's averaging 20 points, 6.5 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals, 4 3-pointers over those games. But in his prior, you can honestly go back as far as you want, he had one game where he cleared 25 minutes this season before these last two. And in that one, it was a good one. He had 18 points, 6 assists, couple of steals. And that's the thing with Alvarado. If we knew he was going to get good minutes, I'd be all over him. But he's the bench guy. He's behind Jeremiah Fears, who's played 2 bad ball games in a row. And so that's why we've had this Alvarado bump. We can't just expect that it's going to happen every single day when you're the second in line. I will say the following, and you guys, folks that are on YouTube, can read what I tweeted about it, which is if he gets pushed into the starting 5, I would make him an ad that moment. That would be a no hesitation, go as fast as you can kind of ad. And I get it. Like, there might be situations where you guys want to add him and hope that the move into the starting lineup comes while he's already on your roster. And I can't stop you from that. The problem for me is that there are so many good names available right now that putting Alvarado on your roster and hoping that the thing we need to happen actually happens is killing potentially a roster slot that you could use on one of these other names that we're going to talk about in the next couple of minutes that belong as starts right this second. Name number 2 on the ads board is Adem Bona, who you guys watching can see I gave 4 stars out of 5 to. He is an absolute monster of a fantasy center when there's no one else that Philly can use. And we're kind of at that point. Like, they could roll, I think Jabari Walker is probably the 4th string center on that roster. Trendon Watford is out, so it's not him anymore. Joel Embiid may or may not be back in the distant or not that distant future. But last night, Andre Drummond went down. If you watched replays of it, it didn't look particularly good. He landed awkwardly on his knee. He ended up being wheelchaired down the tunnel. Some of that's because he's, the size of a woolly mammoth, and trying to walk on an injury would be a way to make it worse. But also, you're not going to put a dude in a wheelchair unless things are not seeming all that great. It was like towel in hand kind of, this isn't going to be a day or two unless some sort of miracle happens kind of absence. So we're on Bona time now. And Bona time is good time for fantasy. And you can look at the end of last year if you don't believe me. He was a freaking freight train down the stretch at the end of the 24-25 NBA season. I'm trying to remember exactly how many weeks it was. I think it was like the last 3 weeks that all the other centers were out. Bona played 29 minutes a game over that stretch, averaged 14 and 8 with 3.5 defensive stats on 73% shooting. He was a fourth rounder. And I think he's going to be a fourth rounder now. No, like this is a different year for Philly. They're not going to tolerate him being bad. They'll go to a small lineup instead. But he's going to have the first crack at it. And that means that he's got a great shot at top 75 or better. So I think Adem Bona is a guy you should be racing out to pick up right this second, hoping that, again, he plays well enough to sort of get and keep the starting job and then enjoy. Number 3 on the list is also a 4-star guy, in my opinion, and that's Jay Huff of the Indiana Pacers, who was playing well already. And so he's one of those guys that may have been added in your league, a day or two in advance. We talked about him 1 day in advance as a guy that I was like, yeah, I think you probably need to pick him up, which even that probably wasn't quite early enough because he had 3 out of 4 good ball games even before moving into the starting 5. He had a 20.3 block game that got him added in a lot of spots. Then he had a 5.4 block game, which I don't know if that kept him on rosters or got him dropped. Unclear. Then he had an 18-minute game where I was like, yeah, he put up pretty good numbers in those 18 minutes, but I still can't trust him to play enough. Then he got 28, and that was the moment where you were like, look, you certainly can't leave this guy on waivers anymore. If this is going to be happening regularly off the pine, you add him, and then he got the starting job. And that's the big difference maker. Even though his minutes were actually lower, that was largely because the Pacers won by 33. That game was over. He had 12 points, 6 boards, 2 threes, 4 blocks, and his shooting was better. So he's a guy I think needs to absolutely be added in every single league until Indy makes another adjustment to their starting 5, which it feels like, we know enough about Rick Carlisle to know he's going to be screwing around with lineups until he finds one that actually works. But Huff is the 3-pointers blocks combination center. Somebody on Twitter that was like, Dan, is he like the new Brook Lopez? And I was like, no, he's not, because Jay Huff has no actual real offensive game. He's going to get a dunk here and there, and he's going to take 3-pointers, and that's kind of his jam. And like Brook Lopez was a legitimately very good basketball player for a long time. But from a fantasy standpoint, the answer is actually yes. He's not going to be a big-time rebounder. He's going to be, 5-6 rebounds a game as a full-time center. He's going to score a bit, and he's going to block shots. And, Brook Lopez is probably a better free throw shooter, definitely a better field goal percent guy. It's not an accurate comparison, but it's a shot-blocking big that hits 3-pointers. That's just accept that without a player comparison. And I don't know how long it's going to stick, but the reason we're spending a couple minutes apiece on these early guys is they really need to be on rosters. Like Jay Huff really needs to be on rosters. He should be universally owned in 12-teamers and larger. I don't know about 10s. It might not be worthwhile in 10s, but this dude is dominating. The shot blocking alone is worth it, even with nothing else going on. But over the last week, he's number 65, and that's in 22 and a half minutes a game. If he's the starter, and if we can start to count on 26, 27, 28 minutes a night, that locks him into that valuation, where even if the shot blocking comes down, other stuff probably comes up a little bit to sort of counterbalance that marker. Isaiah Jackson shifting to the bench is definitely reason to drop, by the way. I know he's not the actual focal point of today's podcast, but you might as well. This was a spot where I was kind of holding both guys to see what was going to happen, and now we have a better idea of what's happening, so deal with it. Egor Demin, kind of an active stash, but obviously coming off a career ball game, it's hard to completely ignore him. In yesterday's loss to the 76ers, Demin had 23 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists, a steal, 2 blocks, and 5 3-pointers. He was the leading usage guy on Brooklyn. And yes, no Michael Porter Jr. Cam Thomas is still out for we don't know how many more weeks. That's going to change things considerably. But this is a little bit of kind of that sneak preview. What do we think Demin's going to do after the All-Star break, after the trade deadline kind of thing, which, look, I get it. That's still 2.5 months away. So I'm very much not at all advocating for squatting on Demin until that time. I just think we're getting this is a look of why, and I've said this on the show a couple of times. This is a guy who I think is going to have some interesting fantasy value. I just don't think it's going to be right away. So sure, you could active stash him and hope that he's got a couple more of these types of games in the chamber between now and February, and that that kind of helps paper over a lot of what I can pretty much promise you guys are going to be bad games between now and February. I just don't think, again, if this was a lull, if this was one of those times where a bunch of guys were coming back from injury and you had dead roster spots, it'd be a totally different discussion. But I literally just gave you two centers that are must roster players, and I can't imagine you have another slot that you can use on a Egor Demin active stash, hope things are not that bad for the next 2.5 months kind of play. I'm just trying to be reasonable in how many roster spots I think you guys have. So I lean towards no for now, but freaking hell of a ball game. That's for damn sure. I'm a little worried that my computer is about to glitch out. So, well, that was weird. All right. Camera glitched out, screen glitched out, but we're back. I don't think we lost anything of note other than looks like the Twitter page jumped all the way back up to the top. Anyway, we're talking about Domin. In case you missed the end, in case that glitched out, he's a guy that I think probably can wait on a little bit. Number 5 on the board is Saddiq Bey. But before we get to that, I want to remind you guys of all the things you can see in the show description. Oh, yes, the show description. There is everything there that you could possibly want. Number 1, you can check out our buddies over at FanDuel and the FanDuel Sportsbook. That's a gimme. They are our presenting sponsors here on Old Man Squad, They Believe Network podcast. But also, there's just all these free things in there. The Google Sheet, which has the injury replacement board. It has the bubble guys. It has a project that I'm about to embark upon, which is basically ranking every single player in the NBA into buckets, such as, like, is this a volume guy? Is this an all formats guy? I want to do that with everybody, and I want to figure out a way to color code names based on where they're going, and then that's going to make my nightly recap so much faster. So I got to get the time to do that kind of on the front end, and the kids are going to have to be back in school for this to happen. But it's going to be one of my biggest in-season projects ever, and it's going to be free, as always, as all things are. It's how I think you guys want your fantasy basketball information. Other things I do that are free, that are not the Google Sheet. This podcast, which you can listen to on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, all those links are in the show description as well. The Discord, which is totally free, which has some of my nightly recaps and over 5,000 other people that hang out, that roll with the Old Man Squad that you can ask questions of. It also has all of our other show hosts in there if you'd like to meet them as well. It's got a Blue Sky link. I don't know if anybody's still using that thing. And of course, it does have the one thing that I'm doing that costs more than 0 cents, which is the 99-cent Patreon or YouTube memberships. I've told you guys what those are about, but I'll mention it briefly here once again. I'm just trying to be a net neutral in my household, meaning if I can use podcast revenue and the YouTube memberships plus the Patreon memberships to pay for my childcare, then we are good to go. I can do all of this stuff for free. I can keep expanding forever because expansion costs nothing. I just have the overhead of childcare. That's it. And we can continue to get all these other podcast hosts paid, which is amazing. It's basically like the biggest reason that I started this. There were others as well, but that's a big one. No gatekeeping. Let's just get in there. Let's get people paid for what they're doing. Content should be rewarded. And so I need your help. So that's why I set it at 99 cents, because I figured it was a number that most of you guys wouldn't even think about. And if you're a YouTube member, you can post comments on the show, and I will actually get to see them. I check it. I try to check it daily, once, maybe twice a day, and I can get back to you guys on your comments, members only, as it so goes. So check that out. Please do think about becoming a member if you've got 99 cents. I will be forever grateful. Let's talk Saddiq Bey, who seems to be a very obvious first fill-in guy with the New Orleans Pelicans. We've sort of hit that juncture where it's like, oh, well, if anybody in the front court is out, at least we know where to go. And it's Saddiq freaking Bey, who barely had time to go back to sucking before Herb Jones went down, because Saddiq was kicking some serious butt when Zion was out. And now Herb went down, and Saddiq is kicking even more butt. He's coming off 3 consecutive double-doubles. 18 and 11, 20 and 13, 18 and 10. He has 6 steals over that stretch. He has 8 3-pointers. He shot the ball relatively well, which is all you can ask for a guy doing what he's doing. And he's not universally rostered. I don't completely understand why. He should be on every roster while Herb Jones is out. He's been outstanding on a bad team that's just going to shovel usage whoever wants it. Get him in there, man. He's taken more than a dozen shots a game as this fill-in option. Now, when Herb comes back, we saw he went down to 18, 19 minutes a ball game. So he goes from being extraordinarily good to being completely irrelevant. But whatever. We'll take the good while we got the good. Number 6 is Tre Jones. You guys killed me on social media and in the YouTube comments for suggesting that we should hang on to Tre Jones, not because I thought for sure he was going to be good, but because I wasn't sure that he wasn't. And he came back from injury on like a weird little minutes cap. It wasn't like he was out for a month. He was out for one freaking week, but he came back and played 18 minutes and then 26 minutes. And it was like, all right, well, what is this guy actually going to be? And the last 2 ball games with the Bulls fully healthy, he had 10 points, 11 assists in one of them, 16 points, 4 assists, and 5 steals in the other. He's a high percentages guy, so it's easy for him to have a good fantasy floor. The steals create a floor. The assists create a floor. He doesn't hit 3-pointers. He doesn't rebound. He doesn't typically score all that much. And so that was the fear of how is this going to balance itself out? And right now, it looks like the answer is in his favor. So I think we can continue to hang on to Tre Jones. I'm not convinced that this is going to stick. I think these last 2 games have probably been a little bit better than what you can expect from him in 26, 27, 28 minutes. But if that's a number that stays there or even creeps up just the tiniest bit, then he does continue to stay inside the top 100. So we're close. We're not all the way there, but this is why I said to hold on, because I thought there was a decent chance, and now we're seeing that there is at least a half decent chance. Number 7 on the ads board today is Yves Missi. It's a similar breakdown to Jose Alvarado, but actually slightly more negative. Because with Alvarado, we know that in starters minutes, he always puts up fantasy numbers. Missi in starters minutes doesn't. He's not a good free throw shooter. He doesn't score very much. His rebounding is pretty good, and his shot blocking is pretty good, but everything else leaves something to be desired. So he's a guy where I don't think, even if Missi started, even if he was back in the starting 5, I don't think that I would pick him up in traditional 9-cat leagues. Punt free throw spots, I would pick him up if he got the starting job, and this is why I need that massive Google Sheet board I was talking about of like, where does Yves Missi fall? Well, he falls in a -1 category ads board. Not yet, though. As long as he's coming off the bench, he's a head-to-head volume play, but with the asterisk of if he moves into the starting 5, he becomes a -1 board ad. Okay, cool. Let's talk about the next one. Number 8 is AJ Green, who is a name that I'll be honest, I did not think I was going to see on the ads board, but he's coming off 2 really nice ball games in a row where he had 12 points and 8 assists with a couple of steals in one. He had 18 points and 6 3-pointers in the other with, again, a couple of steals. But here's the problem for young AJ Green. The steals, massive outliers. He doesn't get defensive stats almost at all. He had a combined 3 steals total in his previous 7 ball games. He had 3 steals in the 6 ball games total before that. Before the 8 assist game over his previous 5 or 6 games, he had 8 assists. The one thing that you can count on with AJ Green is 3-pointers. It's the only shot he takes. I think I might be goofing this up, but I think there was a stat either last year or maybe it's carried over to this year that almost nobody in the NBA takes a higher percentage of their shots from downtown. So if you want threes, AJ Green will give you threes because whatever he shoots is going to be a 3-pointer. But this other stuff that's been happening for the last week, that's not real. That's a mirage. 4 3-pointers, sure, that could happen for a week here and a week there. 3 could happen, frankly, long term. But the fact, like, he's in the top 80 on the shoulders of these steals numbers that are not going to stick. 1 high assist game, better field goal percent over the last week. It's not real. It's very much a mirage. He is a 3-point streamer and nothing else. Number 9 should be much higher on the board, and that's Julian Champagnie. And frankly, I was too low on him for the previous couple of no Stefan Castle, no Victor Wembanyama games. He's top 40 over the last week. He's top 65 over the last 2 weeks. That's when he really started to kind of get things cooking. And real like the big change for Champagnie was that he started to hit a couple of his three-pointers and he started to yeah, I mean, I guess that was it. The defensive stats have been a little bit better lately, but not by a boatload. He's still not even really hitting his field goals. But over the last week, he's at 16 and 11. The rebounds have been much better lately as well. I don't know that that's not gonna stick at 11, but he has shown himself to be a one burger play, as we like to talk about on this show. He's a guy that's a fill-in because the usage is just there right now. He's getting to do enough. He's getting to rebound enough with no Wembanyama because Luke Cornett is not, a world-beating rebounder. There's just enough stuff for Champagnie to do that pushes him up into the Devin Vassell must fill in kind of play. Champagnie's the other must fill in guy on the Spurs, and you should get him on your roster because he's just looked really, really, really good for call it 4 straight games where he's really jacked up his production. If his minutes ever start to tick back down into the mid to high 20s, I think then you start to say, well, yeah, this isn't really what we wanted. But it kind of felt like that was slump related more than anything else because when he's playing even decent basketball, the Spurs are getting him to 30 minutes. He was getting 30 minutes even when the Spurs were healthy. He just wasn't getting the rebounds. He wasn't getting the touches that he's now getting with Wemby out and Castle out. And he's getting double-digit shot attempts instead of 6. It's a big usage jump for Champagnie, and that's the big thing. It's the rebounds were already decent before that. They're better over the last 3 games. Again, unsustainably high, but it's been a slight uptick in rebounds, but a big uptick in scoring and threes that has really and free throws, honestly, that has kind of thrust him into this must-play status. He is, of all the guys on the Spurs, the closest from falling out of the must-play zone because, like, you've got Keldon Johnson, who's been good lately, but mostly on the shoulders of crazy high field goal percent. Luke Cornett, who's been better over the last 2 to 3 games because he finally started blocking a few shots, but don't know if that holds. The 28 minutes holds, he holds as well. Those guys, Cornett, Champagnie, those are the guys that could kind of like pivot onto either side of the all formats line right now. And then the other guys are generally a little bit below it. We talked plenty about Dylan Harper. I think he's a guy you pick up in head to head and hope that he kind of ramps upward. But the all formats guy right now is definitely Julian Champagnie. And the 10th and final name on our show today is Ryan Nembhard, who burst onto the scene 2 games ago with 17 minutes of bench action. That included 7 assists. And then double burst with a nice little 17-point performance against the Lakers, who didn't bother to defend anyone and really didn't bother to rebound in a game they won anyway. Nembhard finishing with 17 points, 4 assists, a steal, and 3 3-pointers. That was fun. Like it was cool to see him come out and do some stuff, but there's absolutely no way that you can trust Jason Kidd is going to stick with Nembhard. They have 3 point guards on that Mavs team, and Jason Kidd doesn't trust any of them. Brandon Williams got plenty of minutes off the bench. D'Angelo Russell got himself a healthy little DNP. I think he was healthy. I didn't hear anything about him not being. Literally just not being played. I can't believe this dude. So, like, he was a guy that we were all thinking about taking in September, and then as soon as he didn't really get any minutes in the preseason, it was like, yeah, you don't draft this guy anymore. So Brandon Williams got 24 minutes. Ryan Nembhard got 23. That was basically all of the point guard minutes split almost right down the pike with D'Lo out of the rotation. This went from being a slightly messy timeshare to a very messy timeshare, and I don't want to roster any of them until someone in that group grabs the frickin' job by the reins and actually takes it. By the time that happens, Kyrie Irving might actually be back in the mix. So don't worry about picking up a Mavs point guard. It's not necessary, even if Nembhard had himself a pretty good ball game yesterday. That's 23 and a half minutes. Like, that alone should be enough to steer you in another direction. And those are your hot 10. Those are your hot 10 today. And I'm realizing that you guys are getting the like non touched up version here as I blow up my face on YouTube. Ugh. Early in the morning, Dan doesn't look so good. All right, that's better. Use some filters to make me not look so disgusting. Uh, Lots of really good names on that list. This was a fun one today. We had some like legit ads. You had Adem Bona, you had J Huff, you had Bey as a fill-in, you had Jones as a nice hold, you had Julian Champagnie. There's like 5 guys on the list today that really do belong as everyday starts. That's good stuff. So get on it, people. Go make the ads. Go retool your team. It's a beautiful Saturday morning. You got free agents as far as the eye can see. They're coming in real nice this year. It's a good year for free agents. And then do all the things that I request of you. Hit up all the free stuff in the show description. Join the Discord. Follow on Twitter at Dan Vespers. Follow Old Man Squad on social media if you want to get alerts when shows drop, things of that nature. Hit the subscribe button, please, dear God, however you're taking in this show. That's easily the biggest thing because growing the podcast is the fastest way that we can actually get to our financial low water mark. And then again, if you have 99 cents, if you don't, I totally understand. It's not going to change what I'm doing for at least a season and a half. You have a long runway on this one. But if you have 99 cents, I would very much appreciate it. And if you have questions after you do the 99 cents, feel free to throw them my way. I will get around to those eventually. I'm Dan Vespers. Hope you enjoyed the Hot 10. Have a lovely Saturday. Tomorrow, we'll try to get you the week in preview show on Sunday instead of Monday. Should be able to pull that off. I think our plans are relatively minimal this weekend because everybody's sort of not around or half asleep or whatever. But whatever. I'm around. Enjoy. Or don't. I don't know. It's a bad ending to a show, but ending.